I used to think power was in money, status, and connections. But the real power, it's something far deeper. I let a billionaire think he had me in his control, but it was never about him. It was always about me. This is the story of how I reminded him of that. Before we dive in, don't forget to subscribe, like, and hit the bell icon for more powerful stories. Stay with me. This journey is going to change how you see the world. I'm not a heroine. I won't tell you I did something extraordinary or that I'm some kind of martyr. What I did wasn't heroic. It was personal. It was messy. But that's the truth of it. You see, there's a moment in every person's life when they realize they've been chasing the wrong thing. For me, it wasn't about money or success. It was about power. I'm a Black woman, and if you know anything about that, you know how the world can make you feel small. Sometimes it feels like you're invisible, even when you're standing right in front of everyone. I've learned to navigate that. I've had to. You can't survive this world without learning how to wear strength like a second skin. You have to act like you belong, even when no one thinks you do. That's how I got through. That's how I learned to play the game. But let me tell you something. No one ever tells you about power. It's like a flame. At first, it warms you, gives you light. You feel invincible. But if you're not careful, it'll burn you alive. I wasn't always aware of how badly I wanted power until I found myself in the middle of a situation that made me question everything I thought I knew. I was good at my job. I had my own life. I had plans, dreams, and a future I was working toward. But there was something seductive about someone who had everything. Someone who could give you a taste of what it feels like to be untouchable. A billionaire, with more money than he could spend in 100 lifetimes, more influence than most of us can ever dream of. He saw something in me, something that made him want to pull me closer, get me under his wing, give me a piece of his world. It felt like an opportunity, and for the first time in my life, I felt like maybe I could finally make it. Maybe I could step into a world where people like me don't just survive, they thrive. But here's the thing, I didn't realize it then, but there's a cost to all of this. To this world of big deals, luxury, and glittering promises. It wasn't until it was too late that I saw how deeply I had let myself slip. The cost wasn't just money or the things I could buy. It was my soul. I'm telling you all this not for sympathy, but to remind you of something important. We can all get caught up in the idea that power is about who we know, what we have, how much we can control. But in reality, power isn't something you can own. It's something you have to reclaim, again and again and again. And that's what I learned the hard way. I'll never forget the day I realized just how far I'd fallen. The day I understood that I had let him ruin me, not because I didn't have a choice, but because I thought I needed him to remind me what I was worth. I was wrong. This is the story of how I let a billionaire think he could break me. But in the end, it wasn't him that had the power. It was always me. And trust me, when you finally realize that, nothing is ever the same again. I had heard his name long before I met him. Everyone in the city knew about him. The billionaire who seemed to own everything, who had his fingers in every pie, who could make or break careers with just a phone call. He wasn't just wealthy, he was powerful in a way that made people stop talking when he entered a room. But I never thought I'd be in the same room as him. Then one day, there he was. I won't pretend I didn't feel a rush of awe when I saw him, but there was also something in me that stood firm. I wasn't like the others who fawned over him, chasing after him as if his approval would change their lives. I had my own life, my own path. I wasn't going to be another person who lost herself in the idea of him. He was charming, though. That much I'll give him. He had this presence, calm, collected, a little too perfect. But it wasn't just his wealth that intrigued me. It was how effortlessly he made everyone feel like they mattered, how he made you believe that you were special. And for someone like me, someone who had spent so much time proving my worth just to be seen, That was intoxicating. He didn't just want to be around me. He wanted me. That's how it felt. At least, that's how he made it feel. But I couldn't let myself forget that he was a player in a game I hadn't even fully understood yet. He wasn't just offering friendship or a connection, he was offering power. And when someone offers you that much, you have to ask yourself, what's the catch? Because there's always a catch. Always. At first, it felt like a dream. The dinners, the late-night conversations, the private events. He had this way of making me feel like I was the only one in the room, the only one who truly understood him. I thought I had control. After all, I was still living my life, still holding on to my independence, right? But slowly, bit by bit, I realized I was giving more than I intended. It started with the small things, the compliments that felt genuine, the moments of attention that felt like they were just for me. He made me feel seen in ways I didn't even know I craved. He'd ask about my dreams, my goals, and listen in a way that made me feel like I mattered. And it wasn't just empty flattery. He was different from the others. He spoke like he wanted to understand me, not just the surface-level stuff, but the deeper things. Things I didn't even talk about out loud. And maybe that's the trick. He didn't just see me as a woman, he saw me as a person, someone with ambition, with ideas, with a future. But here's where things got messy. Because the more he invested in me emotionally, the more I started to feel like I needed his validation. It wasn't something I consciously chose, but it was there, this subtle, nagging feeling that if I didn't keep up, if I didn't stay in his orbit, I would lose something important. And that's where the manipulation started. It wasn't a sudden shift, but a gradual one. At first, it was just little suggestions, small choices, little favors. But they weren't just gestures of kindness. They were tests, ways for him to see how far I'd go, how much I'd compromise. Every time I said yes to something, no matter how small, I felt a piece of my independence slip away. But it was so well disguised. It felt like he was looking out for me, guiding me, helping me succeed. I was hooked. I didn't even realize it until it was too late. The first time I really felt it, the weight of the manipulation, was when he asked me to make a decision that went against everything I stood for. At first, it seemed harmless. He had this business deal, a huge opportunity that would change everything for both of us. He made it sound so simple, so necessary. He told me it was just a small compromise, something I'd have to do to get ahead. And that's the moment when I realized that his small compromise wasn't just a small decision. It was a test of everything I believed in. I didn't know how to say no, not to him. He was the key to everything I had been working toward, everything I had dreamed of. In his world, a single deal could change your life forever, could catapult you into a space you never thought possible. And who could resist that kind of power? I didn't want to be the one to walk away from it. I didn't want to be the person who couldn't keep up. So I did it. I went along with it. I compromised my values, just for the sake of this opportunity. I told myself it wasn't a big deal, that I could handle it, that it was just business, but I could feel it eating at me, slowly, quietly. The guilt, the realization that I had crossed a line I couldn't take back. The moment I said yes, something inside me shifted, but I didn't realize just how far gone I was until he started treating me differently. At first, it was subtle, a coldness in his tone, a dismissive glance. Then, it escalated. I had given him a foothold, and he wasn't going to let go. The more I gave, the more he took. And soon, it wasn't about business anymore. It wasn't about anything except control. That was when the betrayal hit me hard. It wasn't just the deal that went wrong. It was the realization that I had given up a part of myself. I had let someone use my ambition against me. And in doing so, I lost something I couldn't get back. I won't lie. There were days when I felt completely broken, like I had nothing left of myself. I had spent so much time trying to fit into his world, trying to live up to his expectations, that I didn't recognize who I was anymore. The constant feeling of being drained, of being used, started to take its toll. I couldn't escape the nagging feeling that I was losing myself, and with every step I took deeper into his world, I was being chipped away at, piece by piece. It wasn't until one night, when I was alone, that the truth hit me. I had been sitting in front of a mirror, staring at my reflection for what felt like hours, trying to reconcile who I had become with who I used to be. I had everything I thought I wanted: money, success, power, but I was hollow. The woman staring back at me wasn't someone I recognized, and it shook me to my core. In that moment, it became clear. I had let myself get lost. I had wrapped my worth around the idea of success, around this billionaire's approval, but in the process, I had buried the most important part of me, the part that never needed validation from anyone else. It was like a light bulb flickering on inside of me, and suddenly, I realized that I was the power, not him, not the money, not the influence. I didn't need to be a pawn in someone else's game. I had spent so much time playing by his rules that I forgot I could make my own. That's when everything changed. I started questioning everything. The choices I had made, the things I had allowed to slide, the compromises I had been willing to accept. I wasn't powerless. I had just forgotten the power that was mine to reclaim all along. I was done being a victim. I was done giving pieces of myself away. It was time to take back control. It was time to remind myself of who I really was. When I finally made the decision to take back control, I didn't make a scene. I didn't shout. I didn't break things. And I didn't confront him head on. No, the truth is, power doesn't need to be loud. It doesn't need to demand attention. The quietest person in the room can be the most dangerous one if they know how to move. I knew I had to play this carefully. I had to turn the tables, but in a way that he wouldn't even see coming. See, the thing about someone like him, a billionaire who thinks he's untouchable, is that they get so used to controlling everything around them, they forget how much of their own power is vulnerable. And that was my advantage. I didn't need his money or his connections to win. I didn't need any of the things he used to manipulate me. All I needed was my mind, my strategy, and the quiet determination that was growing inside me. So I started small. I began to shift how I interacted with him, how I responded to his requests, his demands. I stopped seeking his approval. I stopped being the one who was always available, always eager to please. Instead, I became more elusive, less predictable. I started playing the game, but on my terms. He noticed. At first, it was subtle. He'd call, and I wouldn't pick up. I'd decline invitations. I'd step back from conversations that used to pull me in. He tried to pull me back in, using the same tactics he had used before: appeals to my ambition, promises of new opportunities. But this time, I wasn't fooled. This time, I saw through every word, every move. I took power back in the simplest way. I stopped letting him control my actions. I didn't need his approval. And when he realized that, when he realized I no longer needed him to feel powerful, it shook him. For once, he was the one who felt uncertain. He didn't have control anymore. And in the end, that was all I needed. It's funny how life has a way of revealing your true strength when you least expect it. When I finally cut ties with him, when I truly let go, I thought it would feel like a weight had been lifted. In some ways it did, but it wasn't the relief I expected. No, it was more like waking up after a long, deep sleep and realizing you've been dreaming for far too long. And in that moment of clarity, you see everything for what it really is. I walked away from him, from the illusion of power he had once given me. But more than that, I walked away from the person I had become, the person who had let someone else dictate her worth, her choices, her value. I was no longer the woman who lived for his approval, who tailored her actions to fit into a world where I didn't belong. I was someone new. someone who had reclaimed the pieces of herself that she thought were lost forever. But here's the thing. When you let someone break you down, you learn something about your resilience you didn't know existed. I learned what it really meant to own my worth, to stand firm in my truth, even when the world around me was trying to convince me I wasn't enough. I learned that power isn't something that can be handed to you. It's something you build for yourself, from the inside out. The lessons weren't easy. They came with pain, with disappointment, and with moments of doubt. There were times I questioned if I had made the right choice, but then I remembered the power wasn't in him. It was in me, always had been. So, I'm not telling you this story for sympathy or validation. I'm telling you this because you need to understand that no matter how much someone may try to break you, you can always rebuild yourself. It's not about what you lose. It's about what you find when you look within. And now, I walk with the knowledge that no one, not a billionaire, not anyone, can ever take that from me. If you've ever felt controlled or pushed down by someone, remember this. Your power is within you. Don't let anyone make you feel less than you are. If this story resonated with you, subscribe, share it with someone who needs to hear it, and comment below with your own experience of reclaiming power. You're not alone.